Right, welcome. I'm going to attempt to do well, it's not really a flat Earth video, and it's not really a globe Earth video. It's a somewhere in the middle video, right? I don't really know how you would categorize this, but what I'm going to be asking the question basically: who's wrong and who's right? Are the flat Earthers right, or are the globe Earthers right? And so, obviously, we probably all grew up with um, this idea right here. And if we look at the science, if we look at the way science works, this actually fits quite nicely. Let's be honest, it does fit quite nicely that the planets, go around the sun and yada yada yada. It's quite a nice theory, yeah. But this will be a but for a lot of people as well. There's just something gnawing. There's been something gnawing at me for a while. Something's not quite right here. Something's not what I'm missing something, and this is probably the way a lot of flat Earth people feel. I've gone down that looking into the flat Earth, and oh, can you measure the curvature and all this stuff? And again, when we get into all those kind of taking physical measurements of things, we're always assuming that we know the mechanics of the thing in the first place. So we have to start from an assumption that we thoroughly understand the mechanics of the thing to begin with, which I think is a false assumption. And assumption is the mother of all mess ups, to put it politely. So it's almost like you can do the flat Earth, you can go down the flat Earth path, but I came to a realization when I went down that path that it's next to impossible to actually prove any of this stuff, especially on a being an individual man, yeah. And so what we have to do as an individual man, I believe that the nature of the universe is divulged to us by God or consciousness. It's divulged to us in the things that we see in nature. We don't have to stack up, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours of research based off of somebody else. And the problem is, like I said, if you start from a false assumption, all that work that comes after that potentially is all false as well. So, but what I'm not saying right now, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna say something here. I'm not saying that this is necessarily wrong. Yeah, I'm not saying that the heliocentric model is necessarily wrong. We're going to look at this, or I'm going to explain this from a different standpoint, because the flat Earth thing. The reason why this thing has come about is it's really people that are awakening to the lies within the system. Yeah, they're awakening to the fact that the system generates lies, and it becomes difficult to believe anything that the system tells you. Yeah, so when they tell you that it's a heliocentric model, it becomes very, very difficult to believe that thing, and so you go off, like a crazy man, trying to figure out, how does the flat Earth work? Is it even a flat Earth? What we're really doing with the idea of the flat Earth really comes down to this idea of Earth returning to the center of our known universe. Rather than looking at the universe through the sun's eyes, we're looking at the universe through the Earth's eyes now. Yeah, we've returned. The flat Earth movement it's about returning back to the balance point of our reality, which is the Earth, yeah? You cannot ignore the two big glaring things that are in the sky, which is the sun and the moon, that everybody can see. And I think a lot of people may have, I know I've witnessed, of course, I know I've witnessed a couple of eclipses, a couple of solar eclipses. So the chances are that a lot of people will witness that during their lifetime, to actually see that one thing fits over the other thing perfectly. I mean, the simple chances of that occurring is just astronomical. And then occurring on, in the vicinity, in the system of a planet that has life on it. I mean, it's just insanely remote, those chances. Yeah. Yet, you know, science kind of tries. I say science. I'm talking about what commercial science is. They just glaze over that, or the religion of science, should I say? They glaze over the obvious, what I want to say here, the obvious signs that are there, i.e., that the sun is balanced with the moon, yeah, and there's a point in between there where we observe this, which is the Earth. So the Earth is the balance point. Quite a simple concept, yet we've kind of thrown that out of the equation. And this is what the flat Earth thing's all about. It's really about returning, in my opinion, it's really about returning Earth to that balance point, to be in the balance point of the system that we're in. With that being said, I'm going to explain how this could potentially is potentially still right, but what it would be like is like looking at one half of a coin. It would be like looking at the head side of a coin and saying, that's it. Yeah. So if you were looking at the heliocentric model, yeah, you have thrown out half of the equation straight away. And this is what scientists do. They can't. It's funny. So I'm just talking about scientists in the broad sense of the word, because I think most truthers, when you come down to pure science, most truthers are in line with that. But I'm talking about the religion. When I'm referring to scientists here, I'm talking about the bulk of the religious type of scientists. What they've done is they've thrown out half of the equation. They've thrown out the idea that there is a metaphysical world. Yeah, that there is a point where the physical reality is reflected in a metaphysical reality, right? So they seem to not be able to wrap their heads around this. And when you come to certain conclusions about maybe how an atom works, rather than being like a mini solar system, is what we're taught at school. That's how an atom is. If an atom happens to be a torus type field, right, with a null point at the center of it, right, a balance point at the center of it, from which everything springs, yeah, and from which everything moves back to, okay. So a reflected, it's a donut basically, right? That's what we're looking at. So if we imagine that that's actually what an atom is probably what an atom is, then, and again, I'm not throwing out the the particle idea, but it's just it's half of the. You're only seeing half of the thing. What you're viewing essentially is a physical metaphor. for the thing, right? I don't know if that explains it well. Just imagine that we're, because the sun reference is the reference for the physical. So with an atom, we're referencing the physical with the make-believe particles that are generated, right? That we can't see anyway, but we're imagining are there. Needless to say, I'm losing track of where I'm going already, but if an atom is a torus field and we can look at galaxies way off in the distance and we can see a plane of inertia, that spiral galaxy, yeah, that's the plane of inertia, and then we've got like columns coming out the top, out the bottom, and if you took a look back from there, if you could see it, and I think there are some, whether they're computer generated or real or whatever, but there are some pictures out there that you can see the slight formation of that torus, yeah, or at least the initial sort of jets coming out of the center of the spiral galaxy. So it wouldn't be far-fetched to think of the Earth as a flat Earth on the plane of inertia, yeah, and it would be the balance point viewing all these other things. But when you move your field of vision to another point, i.e. the sun, now you see something different, more physical in its nature, not balanced. Yeah, you've moved towards the sun, which is, we're not balancing the sun now with the moon. We've now put the sun at the center of the universe. Now the sun's massive. It's in control of the universe, right? And so what we're seeing is a representation of the physical side of the universe with the heliocentric model. When we put the Earth back at the center of the universe, what we end up with, blimmin' hell, this is long-winded, I know, is, and we observe at least a couple of the planets. What do I want? I think it's this one. Yeah. So the Earth's at the center of this spiral graph type image right here. And what we see is the orbital paths over a number of years to complete a cycle, yeah? We see the orbital paths of planets moving around the Earth. Now this, to me, looks more divine than the heliocentric model, right? And I hope I'm not waffling too much. It's the lotus flower. It's this thing. I have a picture of it somewhere here. It's this dude. It's the thing we see in nature, It's the things we see in nature, the sunflower head, this thing. Gosh, I can't think of anything else. But, those patterns. There's something beautiful about that, not so much with not so much with this model. But again, this is not necessarily completely wrong. What we're witnessing here is a metaphor that is deliberately put in front of us, and it's a double-ended metaphor, a double-sided metaphor again. It's the there's a metaphor there to return to the physical side of nature, right? Which is going to, the physical side of nature for us is the only place where we can actually observe what I would call the only place where we can observe natural law, right? So it's the only place where it's like the Ten Commandments in stone, right? It's the place where those physical laws that govern us also govern our behavior, right? And this is the thing, the physical nature of the universe, which will take us back to a balance point. If we follow those physical laws, that will take us back to a balance point, which will in turn, if we go back to balance with this thing, that will bring balance back to the metaphysical side of nature, yeah, the more spiritual side of nature. People will start behaving more correctly. So where do I want to go with this? Let's explain a little bit about this model again here. So this is Ferguson and Dr. Roger Long, okay, and it's the Sun, Mercury, and Venus from the Earth. And so we've got Mercury, a 7-year cycle, Venus, an 8-year cycle. And so so I don't know if I can. So the Earth's in the center. I don't know if this is really necessary to tell you this. I know from past looking at Venus before. Venus is the 5-pointed flower in the center here. So this first cycle will be Venus, and then I don't know if I can see the Sun on here. Anyway, the second cycle is Mercury, most probably. And where is the Sun? Here's the Sun coming around here. Okay. Not sure where the Moon is on here. Whether it's even on here. I don't know if it's. I don't think it is on here. Doesn't say in here it is, but anyway, whatever. It's kind of. I'm going to explain this now. So what we observe when we go to the heliocentric model, right? The heliocentric model explains a phenomenon that was a troublesome thing for. In fact, I might have the picture up here. Let's. Oh, I don't want that. Oh, that's interesting. I will need that in a minute. Let's go back the other way. Hang on a minute. So actually, that actually looks like that's the Sun at the center of that one. What we want is we want one. Maybe I can't find it. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I don't know if I want that one either. Sorry, this is a wild goose chase here. That's the Sun at the center there as well. What happens? Let me just explain it. What happens in that? What happens in this image, right, is that at certain points, when we're watching planets go around the Earth, right, we have a problem because certain planets. In fact, I've not done enough research on this to say whether all, at least the inner planets, anyway. And actually, I don't know. I haven't done enough research on this. This is terrible, isn't it? The people, the Globers that come to watch this, and will be going out of their minds that I'm trying to explain how the universe works. Yeah, I haven't even looked at whether all these planets display what would be a retrograde motion, right? So from the Earth, it appears that the planet that we're observing appears to go backwards and then forwards again. Yeah, it appears to go backwards in time and then forwards again on its orbital path, right? And what that's to do with, it's explained quite nicely in the heliocentric model, is when we go to the heliocentric model, it can be explained through basically the Earth moving faster than, one of these things, or I don't know if it's faster or slower, but anyway, your vision, you're kind of overtaking the object, so it appears to go backwards and then forwards again when it's not really. But anyway, regardless to say, what is going on here is these retrograde motions, right? And So there was a problem explaining this, and I don't know if it really was a problem explaining it, but they kind of didn't like the idea. It kind of was getting complicated, I guess, for them. And let me show you what's actually occurring, or the way they tried to explain this. And if you don't know how a spirograph works, right? If you have a big circle, yeah, and you move a little circle around inside there, and you just have one point, what you'll do, if you can watch my cursor, is you'll trace these kind of loopy images, right? That's what's going on here, yeah? So, and in fact, let's go back to this, if I can find it, this thing. So, to explain that, those spirograph sort of image, we've got a Ptolemaic model here. These epicycles were used to explain why you'd get that sort of funny pattern. You know, I say funny pattern, it's a beautiful pattern, but why you'd get that pattern. Now, obviously, it's a bit odd to say, well, this thing's going around in a circle here, and whether or not they've got one on the Earth here, I don't know if that's actually strictly true. That wouldn't be accurate for what I'm saying, but I'm saying that the Earth is the center point. Everything else is observed from it, and these things are going in. These planets are moving in epicycles, right? And when observed from the sun, it doesn't appear that way. It appears like they're going in, well, oval-shaped orbits around the sun. But what is interesting about this idea is this would actually be quite nice when you're thinking about balance, yeah? This is the balance point. So this thing here, this planet here, would actually be, you know, would be spinning around a balance point, and there would be something counter to this. So there would be a metaphysical planet right here, something that we couldn't observe, but it would be something that would be there if we could see it. If we were on the metaphysical side of reality now, we would just be seeing this thing, and we wouldn't be able to see this thing. But we're here, yeah. We're at the center, and we're able to observe both sides of these things. Yeah, we're at the balance point, the plane of inertia, yeah, pure potential. So we're able to observe at least this thing, but of course this thing is, well, it's metaphysical. It's kind of unobservable, but it's there, if you know what I mean. Difficult to explain, but you could think about it like this. So if you think about this planet and it's got to have something here, look. We could look at a yin and yang now. And so if this was the planet, forget the fishtail parts of it, but if this was the planet right here, you'd have this metaphysical planet here, and this thing would be going around in a cycle like this, if you can see my cursor, and there would be a balance point in the middle. And what we would be observing in the heliocentric model, and what actually we'd be observing in the model from Earth, the geocentric model, we're just observing this thing. So we're either observing it going around in an epicycle, or if we observe it from a different position, from a non-balanced position, we observe the heliocentric model, right? Is the heliocentric model wrong, in my opinion? No, because it's observable. Yeah, we've just changed our vantage point, and we're looking at it from a different point. So it's not necessarily wrong. The only thing that's wrong about it is it doesn't take into account this thing. It doesn't take into account the metaphysical side of reality, and this is the thing that, you know, scientists tend to dismiss. They tend to dismiss the idea of God and consciousness, even though they're conscious beings themselves. They can't seem to get their head wrapped around the idea that they have a spirit themselves, yet they can't explain that, and yet they don't want to accept that there is a metaphysical side to reality. Yeah, and so when we deny this thing and we only look from this point of view, things are going to look a little warped. Yeah, it's not necessarily that they're wrong, it's just that they're warped. It's just that we're not viewing the thing 100% correctly from the balance point of the Earth. As for the shape of Earth, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, before I get onto that, the shape of Earth, but this works out quite nicely with those epicycles, you know. So, you know, there's maybe a clue right there with the yin and the yang. What else do I want to say about this? This is actually one of Ken Wheeler's videos. It just happened to be up for some reason. I'm like, oh, I'll use that, because again, this is looking down, you know, this would be looking at the easy way to explain it, just say the field, we're just looking down on the top of a torus here, the top of the donut, there's the hole in the middle, right? And so, you know, these lines are just representations of the different, I don't want to really get into the mechanics of this thing, because I've not got the ability to explain it well enough, but they just represent this object, basically. Okay, and again, we're back to you know, this patination again. Super interesting. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there, because this is, you know, this torus, you know, what everything's converging and diverging from this point here in the center, right? And so, in fact, there's another one down here and another thumbnail it's the same image in a different color, but you know, it makes you think of this. It makes you think of this thing. You know, let's get back to this thing. It makes you think of. Oh my gosh! I guess I went the wrong. There we go. It makes you think of this thing. You know, these motions here. I don't know. Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting way of looking at things. Technically speaking, you would call, or I would call this more correct than the heliocentric model, and of course, to produce a metaphysical model, I guess that would be impossible. So this is the best thing you've got. This is the combination, viewing from the balance point of our reality, and you know, saying to oneself that we're observing, you know, these observing these bodies in their own state of their own cycles, if you like, their own epicycles within a bigger cycle within a bigger cycle. I don't know, it just seems to make more sense to me. When you look at the patterns in nature, this seems to make more sense to me, you know? And so, you know, that's why we've got this flat earth movement right now, is because people realize that that's all the system does. You know, that's all the matrix does. It's a lie, and that's because it's out of balance, you know. And so when we look at you know, the heliocentric model, this thing it's technically out of balance, you know. There's a metaphor there for us to return to the physical side of nature, but there's also a metaphor there that we are, or there's an observation there that we are looking at things from, or we are, our view of vision right now is from an obscured or a non-balanced viewing point, right? Our view of reality right now is from a non-balanced viewing point, right? And of course, because we can only really deal with the physical side of nature in terms of viewing that thing. This is the thing that's got to be out of balance, to give us that metaphor, to give us the physical metaphor. So I don't know if you follow that. The video is probably way too long already. But it does. It kind of gets on my nerves, right? When you watch a video and you've got a bunch of comments in the video. It's basically, it's basically a to and fro of people slagging each other off, and it's almost like if we can get to that balance point, if we can start observing things from a more rational, balanced perspective, okay, things will start making more sense. And it's kind of, it's kind of like, what is the point of arguing over this stuff? What again? This boils back down to this idea of like a certain group of people saying you've got to go get the shot. It's like a certain set of people saying, well, you've got to believe what I believe, and that's where that's the people that do that, the people that are like that. It's a fear, it's a fear. It's a because they can't understand where somebody else is coming from. Yeah, there's that fear there. They can't understand how somebody can see something differently. And you still get that now, with people that are maybe you'd think they were more enlightened than they are, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm waffling. I don't need to go into all the gory details, but there is something about that idea that people just cannot accept. I mean, what does it matter if somebody wants to believe that pixies and fairies exist? It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you're not going to change that character. That character that has that idea is put there for a reason. Yeah, there's a reason why people believe different things. There's a this, and it's to create, the polar opposite, so that there is always there's always that yin and yang, so these people that don't, and then so there's always that chance to have that argument, right? Unless you want to be at peace, and you want to, instead of having the argument backwards and forwards, you want to be at peace, and you want to find that balance point. That's what peace is, at rest. You want to find that balance point in the center of those two things, yeah? So, just from a philosophical point of view, this thing ain't right, but it's observable. So it can't be completely wrong, yeah? It's one side of the coin. It's the head side of the coin, yeah? What we're not observing is the tail side of the coin. And to observe both sides of the coin, you've got to have that thing spinning, yeah? On a, you spin a coin on a table and you can see both sides of the coin. That thing's balanced, yeah? I don't know. I got to leave it at that because I'm just going to waffle and go on and on and on. I hope you found that interesting anyway, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one. All right, cheers, bye.